You disagree with them, they threaten you. Thousands of hacked emails showing global warming scientists blasting researchers who do not buy into their doomsday scenarios. One of the scientists threatening to, and I quote now, beat the crap out of my next guest. Pat Michaels from the Cato Institute joins me now. Pat, welcome to the program.
Hey, I'm still here.
Yes, you are. Congratulations. Now, these are emails from within the climate change community, and I want to just quote one of them. Here it is. I'm going to put it up on the screen. This email says, "We can't account for the lack of warming at the moment, and it is a travesty that we can't." That implies that the evidence for global warming is rather weak, or that some evidence is being suppressed therein. What do you say?
What's going on with that quote is Kevin Trenberth from the National Center for Atmospheric Research is saying that our computer models did not anticipate the fact that it hasn't warmed for the last 10 years or so. And in private, to all his colleagues who call themselves the climate community, he says, it's a travesty. If you interview him in public, he's not going to say that. And that's the nature of what's going on in these emails.
There is another email. Isn't there another email where they're talking about a trick, and someone is boasting of using a statistical trick to make the warming look steeper in recent years?
Yes, it was a phrase called hide the decline. And Phil Jones, who wrote that from the University of East Anglia, has said, yes, indeed, he did write that. He said it didn't know what it referred to. He knows darn well what it referred to because he's a co-author on a lot of papers who use this data that he is referring to. It's tree ring data that diverges from the global temperature around 1960. And in order to make it look better, they decided not to extend the tree ring data.
I just want to move on real fast to the threat.
Yeah.
Let me quote that one. "I'm really sorry that you have to go through all this stuff, Phil. Next time I see Pat Michaels at a scientific meeting, I'll be tempted to beat the crap out of him. Very tempted." Now, how do you feel about that? You're on the receiving end of this threat. How do you feel?
Yeah, Ben Sanders not a small guy either. That shows that there's a very, very thin skin. All these emails reveal a remarkable thin skin, and that tells me that something's very wrong. The real problem here is the emails showing these guys trying to intimidate the editors of the major scientific journals and succeeding. In other words, keeping me and my friends and my colleagues from publishing in the refereed literature.
But the bottom line here,
serious.
Pat, if you look across the spectrum of all these hacked into emails, do they show that some in the climate community are beginning to have second thoughts about whether global warming exists or not? Are they having doubts?
It's not whether warming exists or not. It's the seriousness of it and the threat that is presented by people who merely say, you know, it might not be the end of the world. By the way, the other side's going to say this story is going to go away. No, it's not. There is so much in here. It's like Watergate. Things are going to come up and up and up and up for the next year.
What are you going to do about it?
I'm just going to sit here and read agog. I first thought it was nothing then my jaw dropped and wound up on the floor on Friday night.
So you got these, you were advised of what was going on, you started to read them on Friday night. Are there literally thousands of these emails?
There are, because many of them are long streams of emails. Yeah, there's thousands. There are things like attempts to get the University of Wisconsin to get rid of my PhD thesis because somebody said X was wrong with it. Well, I looked at it, and indeed what was alleged wasn't even true. And this was emailed to some of the biggest climate scientists in the world, trying to take away my degree. This is ridiculous.
Okay, it's hard stuff. Pat Michaels, a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us today. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now my next guest says, forget those emails. Here's the deal. Global warming is a very real global problem. Dan Weiss from the Center for American Progress. Dan, welcome to the program. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Stuart.
Look, why, if these emails suggest hiding some evidence, the evidence being that the Earth has not warmed in the last 10 years, why put these emails out? Why are you hiding them if global warming does exist? Sounds like it's an attempt to suppress what's really going on.
Well, first of all, Stuart, as you know, those emails were from hacking into the computers by, we believe, some Russian source. They haven't even been authenticated. There's a more fundamental point here.
Dan, do you contest them? Do you contest them?
There's a more fundamental point here.
Are thousands of emails a pack of lies?
I'm not involved in cybersecurity, so I don't know if they're authentic or not.
Are you questioning their authenticity?
It's unknown at this time. But here's the more fundamental point,
the argument, no. The fundamental point here is that we have evidence here, thousands of emails, which you may or may not contest, which suggest that inside the climate community there is a great deal of threat going on, threatening the editors of magazines and threatening other people who disagree with their point of view, to the point where it raises the doubt that there is unity amongst the climate community, that there is indeed global warming. That's it.
Stuart, Stuart, may I have a chance to speak, please?
Yes.
The greatest threat isn't about these emails or to Pat Michaels. The greatest threat is that global warming pollution will continue unabated and cause irreversible harm to our planet. Let me read you a quote from the U.S. climate change program started by President George W. Bush. It says, quote, "Global warming is unequivocal and primarily human-induced." So that is what the threat is. It's not whether or not these emails that may or may not be authentic or that may or may not be altered.
So you are questioning the authenticity of the emails. You are questioning the authenticity of the emails, and then you're saying that they are not relevant, even though they attempt to hide evidence that the globe is not warming for the last 10 years. Look at this. We can't account for the lack of warming at the moment, and it is a travesty that we can't. Now, you may or may not contest whether that's true, but that is what we've got on our screen. That's what's being said. Those are emails. They directly refute your point.
Stuart, if you want to have me on, let me respond. You're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. Here are the facts. The U.S. Global Warming Program says global warming is unequivocal and human-induced.
This is not an argument about whether global warming exists. It's not an argument about whether global warming exists. It is an argument about whether you people should be threatening those who disagree with you.
Reported out a number of impacts. Today, the Associated Press reported out a number of impacts of global warming that are happening right now. Sea level rise up 1.5 inches. Our average temperatures up nearly 0.5 degrees over the last dozen years. We've got reservoirs in the Southwest that were full 10 years ago and now are only half full.
Dan,
we've got on and on. The number of acres burned in wildfires have doubled.
You're in retreat.
Okay, that's the threat, Stuart, not whether or not these emails are authentic or are complete.
All right, from my point of view, here's what I see. I see you guys in retreat. I see that the Copenhagen meeting is a bust, and I think you'll admit that. Cap-and-trade legislation has been pushed well into next year and may completely disappear. Public opinion is beginning to run against you, and there is a very strong feeling that your argument and your support has peaked and is going into reverse. I think you're being very defensive here.
I'm defending the science. You're talking a bunch of emails that may or may not be authentic or may or may not be unadulterated. Here's the thing, Stuart. A group after science group, the American Academy of Advancement of Science, the National Academy of Sciences, our own science program started by George W. Bush, the International Panel on Climate Change, all of them come to the same conclusion. Then you have a bunch of emails that may or may not be authentic, questioning very small parts of the whole thing.
Well, Dan,
the reality is, the planet is warming. The question is, do we want to act or not?
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, but, you know, I don't know whether we can really question the authenticity of those emails. We had just had Pat Michaels on. He was threatened in those emails.
Did Pat Michaels write any of those emails?
He was threatened in them. Are you saying that it was a lie?
Have you gone to each of the people who authored the emails?
Let's have it out here. Are you saying flat out that they were a lie, and that's why you won't respond directly to them?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
I don't know whether or not they were. No one has... The authors of those emails have not come forward and say, yes, I wrote that.
Thousands of them revealed. And you cannot dismiss that as being inauthentic. How did we get them? They were by Russian cyber criminals hacking into a computer. How do we know that they're authentic? There goes your credibility, I'm sure. We have no way to know. Dan,
the real threat isn't the emails. The real threat is global warming pollution.
Pity that Copenhagen meeting didn't get off the ground. Dan, a pleasure. Thank you very much.
It hasn't started yet. It's scheduled to start in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it won't achieve a thing. Nothing at all. And you know it. It's a bust. Got some spare cash? Then Uncle Sam wants you. And it's like eBay for big-time rich people, millionaires, ahead of tax hikes on the way. How the mega-rich are unloading and to collect the cash. We'll be back.